days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk that. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. We're going to be talking about free agent safeties. And I know what you're probably thinking. Tyrann Mathieu, come on down. Jabril Peppers. Quadri Diggs. Oh, so we're going to go with realistic options for the 49ers at safety.
This episode is actually entitled 49ers Free Agent Safeties You've Never Heard of, Cutback Crew. Because the reality of the situation is, if you want to go after and sign a cornerback, you want to talk about bringing in Bobby Wagner, you want to do all of those things, you are not going to be paying a safety a whole heck of a lot of money to come in here to San Francisco. And you already got a lot of money tied up with Jimmy Ward. You got some young options. You got Tarvarius Moore coming off of the injury. Talanoa Hufanga, a guy you just drafted last year that promised there. So you're not going to spend potentially a whole heck of a lot of money here in free agency at this safety position. And you know, I think the key to this, right, is I think a lot of us think that Jaquaski Tartt has the ability to potentially come back here to San Francisco and be re-signed by this team. And if that were the case, it's probably not going to be a whole heck of a lot of money that he gets. And I don't think his market is really that high.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty deep market of safeties. There's a lot of guys out there that are available. I mean, we just went through a few of them, and that's not even including May or some of the other guys that are out there as well. There is a deep...
Or Jesse Bates.
Oh, there you go. There is a deep safety, availability. So Jaquiski Tartt's going to be lower on the totem pole. That could work out very nice for the 49ers, because I think the 49ers have Jimmy Ward as their high-price safety, and then the next guy next to him needs to be affordable. Whether that's Jaquiski Tartt, Tarvarius Moore, who's coming back, making $960,000. Thank you very much.
Really
or Talanoa Hufanga is a fifth-round pick whose number's very nice. I think they don't want to spend a lot of money in that safety room. They have one high-priced guy. If Jimmy Ward wasn't a high-priced guy, then yeah, we could probably talk about Tyrann Mathieu or Marcus May or one of these Quadri Diggs, one of these guys. But we can't. So we need to go with realistic options. I think the most realistic option is Jaquiski Tartt comes back and plays for the 49ers again. He's putting out some cryptic tweets, of course, about pay me money, blah, blah, blah. That's what happens. But I think they need to work out a deal with him and with him to come back. He likes playing with Jimmy Ward. I think he'd really like playing in the secondary. And I think Sorensen's going to do a good job of helping these guys play better with what he's going to bring. I mean, all the Seahawks guys really liked him. So I think this is something interesting. I think the 49ers were going to pay somebody in the secondary. It'll be a corner and not a safety. So I don't think it's going to be high-priced safety. So we're going to have guys to go through that aren't high-priced that the 49ers might actually turn to, especially if Tartt decides to go somewhere else.
And right now, it may look like he's going to try and test free agency. I think he wants to try and test the markets, and I think he wants to see. I think the tweets he's put out have stated as much. I think it's pretty obvious he wants to try and get something. He believes he's a quality safety in this league, and I don't disagree with him. He is a quality safety in this league. Unfortunately, he gets overshadowed by everything else, and that is the San Francisco 49ers. And it doesn't help when you drop, a pass in an NFC Championship game that 49ers fans are going to hold over him until he doesn't do something like that and the Niners win a Super Bowl if he were to come back to San Francisco. So I think that that doesn't hurt his value. That's not hurting his value by any means. I think what's hurting his value the most is the amount of big name safeties that are out in the market right now. And so because of that, in a typical year, he might be a wave 1, wave 2 guy that's right in the middle of that $6, $7, $8 million range. He's not that right now. He's going to be closer to wave 3, somewhere in there, where the Niners aren't going to rush to re-sign this guy, and he's probably not going to be rushed to be signed by anybody either. He's not going to be one of the first names off of a lot of people's list, which actually bodes better for San Francisco than anyone else, because he could potentially sign another 1-year deal and then try and test the market the next year.
Yeah, I think it all depends on what these teams' availability is as far as money-wise. If they're a team that's more strapped for cash and they're looking for a safety, he could be someone they're interested in because he's played in some big football games. But I don't know how many teams are out there. Most of the teams that have cash are looking to pay one of these big-time free agent safeties. Jaquiski Tartt's not a big-time free agent safety. I think he plays well, and he should be mentioned as one of the better safeties in the league. But he's not top 10, top 15 safety in this league. I think he's outside of that. So the 49ers are probably going to let him get out there, test free agency, and then come back. And they're going to put a number out there to him. They'll float a number of what they believe he's worth. And if he can go get something better than that out in the open market, he'll have that opportunity. And if not, he'll probably come back. And I think that they would welcome him back in that situation. What he has to hope is that because the market is not so heavy, that one of these high-priced guys don't look to the 49ers and say, you know what, I'm not going to get the free agent money that I want out there. It's just too saturated with good players. I'm going to run it with a team that I think is going to win, and then I'm going to run it with a very good defensive line, and then try to go do this again next year. In that type of scenario, if that player is better than Jaquiski Tartt, that offer might not be there when he tries to come back. So test the open market at your own peril. This could be interesting. So I think the 49ers are a destination team for a lot of players. So we'll see how this plays out. But the fact that there's so many guys out there, it's going to make it hard for Tartt to get the money I think he wants.
Agreed with you on that. It is going to make it very hard to get the money that he thinks he deserves and that he wants. And listen, I think he needs to try and go get paid. I think that's what every player should be doing. I think you should try and get the most that you possibly can when you can get it. His value is not by any means low. It's just a lot of competition, Ant. And when there's a lot of competition, there are going to be some guys who weigh that, look at that, and go, hey, you know what? Right now is not the time to try and get my money. Right now is the time to try and do something that, not everyone gets to do. Maybe it's time to go, right? Maybe this year is the time to go win the Super Bowl, and maybe next year is the time to go get paid. Listen, Tartt's going to have to play that very carefully, because if he waits too long, it could backfire and blow up in his face. But it also could work out in his favor as well. And, who knows? We'll see. We'll see if a team values him as much as San Francisco might value him. I don't think that to be the case. And we're going to find out, though. Tavon Wilson, another name that was with San Francisco, spent a lot of time, looked very solid in training camp while Jaquaski Tartt was out and not available. Definitely someone I think the Niners could kick the tires on. A guy who's getting up there in age and is getting closer to his mid-30s, but still very viable, serviceable as a safety in the league. And would be, I don't think I would hate this as a 90-man roster sort of fill out to go into the start of the season.
No, I wouldn't either. I think you bring him back to be on the 90-man roster and then let him come into camp and compete. And then if you have an injury in that safety room, then you have somebody that can step and slide in as depth. What you don't want, though, is Tavon Wilson to be a starter for your football team.
Correct.
If he's a starter for your football team, it's not good enough. So in the back end, at least. So I think that they really need to, focus on making sure they have a starter, though, because I have questions about Talanoa Hufanga. I don't know if he's going to be that good in coverage. I think he eventually could be, but I think he needs to be more strategic, used in three safety looks or certain situations, especially playing around the box. I don't think he's ready to go full time yet next to Jimmy Ward. And Tarvarius Moore's coming off an Achilles. Now, I know he should be a lot healthier because that Achilles is a long ways away now. I mean, it's almost been a year now since he had the Achilles injury.
Accurate.
So that is good news, but you don't know exactly what you're going to get from him. Not to mention, Jaquiski Tartt's numbers against the pass are better than Tarvarius Moore's. So you're going to lose something a little bit there, unless he's improved a lot. And I don't know if he has done that yet. I think it's going to be interesting.
That's a question mark.
Right. So I think you do need to address the starting job. And if you can't with Jaquiski Tartt, who's it going to be? You're going to have to bring in someone to compete, somebody that could possibly start, and they're not going to be somebody that's a big-time name. You need to bring in somebody else that maybe has a little bit of starting experience or potential to start, but is not going to break the bank.
Correct, and one of those guys is Kareem Jackson, a guy that you had brought up in our pre-show that you talked about. He isn't going to break the bank.
Yep.
He has started in a lot of places. Older option, 31 years old, but plenty of playing experience, has played at a high level in this league. That could be a short-term option, or even a guy that you bring in knowing that maybe he's your day one starter right away, but maybe you feel pretty comfortable about where Talanoa Hufanga is going and where he could be. Maybe you feel comfortable about what you're seeing from Tarvarius Moore and where he's going to be at.
Yeah, I think Kareem Jackson's a good, viable option because you brought in Clinton Dix before.
Yep.
You brought in Tony Jefferson before. Guys who were veterans in this league, but you needed them on your football team. I don't think the 49ers are against bringing in safeties, especially in the secondary.
No.
Or bringing in older safeties, in the secondary.
No.
I think it's something that, they might need to do. I know a lot of times they like to go with younger players at certain positions, but I think in the secondary, you could go with an older one, especially at the safety position. If you lose a half a step or whatever, it's not the end of the world, depending on how fast you are. So I think that's an option. But, we don't know. Keep an eye on Tony Jefferson. Let's see what he does. There's these other guys that have been a part of the roster before. I don't think we'll see Clinton Dix again, but you just never know with the 49ers. You never know what they're thinking. I just think if Clinton Dix would have been an option, they'd have brought him in during the season when they were having some of their injury concerns.
I agree with you on that. If they truly wanted that would have been the route they would have taken. They didn't take that route, Ant, which means probably not the case. And now we get into a situation where, okay, well, you guys have shot down all the big names. Gentlemen, the two gentlemen there, sitting there with your nice fancy cameras and your microphones and your pop filters and your your 49ers hats and apparel, you're talking about how there's no chance for Tyrann Mathieu. There's no chance for the guys like McCourty, Marcus May, Quandre Diggs, Keanu Neal. They're not going to go after any of these. Then who are the names? Well, let's start with someone who's, you guys familiar with football. Is a name that might ring a bell, at least the last name anyway, Ant. Justin Reid.
Yeah, we're going full Van Wilder. We're just write these down because you're probably gonna have to Google them later and look up their stats and everything.
Write that down.
But Justin Reid is the brother of Eric Reid. He's been playing with the Houston Texans, and if you just go back to the Houston Texans versus San Francisco 49ers game from 2021, you can see him playing against Trey Lance and Deebo Samuel and those guys in the secondary, and he played well. He's a good, talented player. He gets downhill really quick. He closes on the football, and he hits a ton.
Let me tell you right now, this man flies downhill, makes big hits, coming across the middle of the field, ball hawk, knows where he's supposed to be. I really like it. No, but in seriousness, yes, he's a ball hawk. He flies downfield.
Yeah, I think he's actually trending in the right direction. He's one of those guys I think you could get him now, and 2 years from now, he could be a Pro Bowl caliber player.
He's 25.
Yeah, his brother was solid. Eric Reid was one of the solid players that played for the 49ers. I liked him a lot. He could play in the box. He could play, the deep third as well. And I believe Justin can do the same sort of thing. I think he gives you some flexibility. You could probably even put him in the slot at times, but I think he can match up against tight ends. So that's someone the 49ers should definitely be interested in. I don't know with the history between the organization and his brother if he'd be interested in coming to the 49ers, but you would think for the right opportunity and the right amount of money, it wouldn't matter what team that was. He'd want to go in there and get an opportunity to play, especially with a very good defense, and maybe play for D'Amico Ryans in the secondary for a while.
You're not wrong. You're really not. This kind of makes sense. It really does. And after watching some of the highlights and looking at the numbers, they all point towards this kind of making sense. There was a one concern with him when I was looking at the numbers and the stats was the missed tackle percentage. But how much of that is because you're having to try and make crazy tackles in space because you're playing with not a good football team around you?
Yeah,
you're trying to make tough tackles, not easy tackles where a guy's been funneled right into you in space. I did love one thing about him, and that was middle crossers and things of that nature. Anything coming downhill where he could get an angle in space and get downhill at something. He comes downhill in a hurry and makes you pay. He puts the lick on people coming across the middle of the field, which makes receivers think twice. And he's active around the ball. He seems to be kind of a ball magnet at times. He's around it, knocking the ball out, interceptions, things of that nature. And if you're pairing a safety like that with this pass rush, Ant, if he's in the right spots and he's active around the football, that could lead to more turnovers for the 49ers.
Yeah, I think I was excited about this one. I think he's a player that I'm excited about, and the potential that he could have playing.
And the fact that he's 25.
Oh, yeah, and he could play along Jimmy Ward, and Jimmy Ward would, be able to help show him the ropes a little bit. But he's a young guy with a lot of potential, and Jimmy Ward is getting older. You're going to need those safeties in your room. Maybe it's not Tarvarius Moore and it's not Talanoa Hufanga, but it could be somebody like Justin Reid. So yeah, if you haven't had an opportunity to look at any of him or you didn't get to watch him play, check him out. The film is good. He's a good football player and potentially a cheap option for the 49ers because they definitely need to continue to look at the safety room and maybe he's an answer.
You're not wrong. That is an answer they need to at least consider and look at. Another one is out of Detroit with the Lions. Tracy Walker, 27 years old. Film, nice. Numbers, very nice, Ant. Very nice. Played on a very bad defense. I think you and I both think now, or you were the one who thought this first, but I think you and I both think now, taking a look at this might just be a guy who's waiting to get into the right scheme and could potentially blow up.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's one of those guys that he's taking the right steps forward. He's moving in the right direction and he got better. And that sometimes when you get into the right situation with the right coaches and the right teammates, you can take your game to another level. We've seen this happen a lot of times. I remember when the 49ers had Harbaugh come in 2011, and they went out and they signed Carlos Rogers and they signed Dante Whitner, and they brought him in, and everyone was like, oh, these guys were first-round busts. These guys don't have it. And then pretty soon they were both in the Pro Bowl. This is what happens when you take a talented player and put him in the right situation, and I think could be one of those situations for the 49ers. He's talented. He's able to cover. He's good at tackling, and I think he could take the next step if the 49ers bring him in.
This is a surefire tackler. 9% missed tackle rate, Ant. Doesn't give up a lot of air completion yards.
Yeah.
Did give up some yak, but again, I'm not willing to credit a lot of yak to a guy like this, especially since a lot of that yak came in week 1 with Deebo Samuel on the football field, and he had, I think it was 398 yards of total yak, and Deebo had like 125 in week 1 or something like that. A crazy number. Look, I don't want to knock a guy in certain numbers, but there are some numbers that I really like. And his tackle number, the way he comes down to space, he doesn't miss tackles, the way he's able to secure guys, keep guys from getting those extra yards, things of that nature. I love all of that.
Yeah.
I think this is a scheme thing. I think he hasn't been in a good situation with a lot of talent around him. I don't think he's had a pass rusher necessarily getting after it, so he's having to hold up in space, trying to cover. That can make for some problems.
Yeah, and he's a guy that can cover, and you need those players. You need the guys that can do both, and I think he's one of those guys. And so, where you worry a little bit about Hufanga in the coverage area, maybe Tracy Walker's one of those ones you don't worry about. So somebody to keep an eye on. Not a expensive guy by any means, and most of you guys that are listening to us talk about him have probably never heard of him. And if you have, that's good. I wonder what Matt Burgos thinks about Tracy Walker.
Hey, Matt, let us know in the comment section down below right now what you're thinking. And then, Ant, one more name no one has ever heard of or even considered. From the Jacksonville Jaguars. What? Jacksonville? Why do you guys talk about 3 bad teams? Well, listen, you could be a bad team. Doesn't necessarily mean you have bad players. Sometimes those players just need a different change of scenery and environment. And Andrew Wingard out of Jacksonville might be one of those guys. And put together an incredible season in 2020. 70 QBR rating allowed. 2021, that number goes up. Not really on him though. We watched a lot of the film. You took a look at it, and he's pretty solid in coverage and young, 24 years old.
Yeah, he was playing for a different style of defense. They hire Urban Meyer. They bring in a different style of defense. So what he's asked to do is differently. But he's one of those guys that can do like Tartt. He can play in the box and he can play the deep third. Now, is he as good in coverage as Tartt right now? No, he's not. But he does dynamic things in the box, and he's an absolute tackling machine. So, I mean, he's going to help your run game in a big way.
Tackle and fuel.
So, he's a guy with experience starting, and what I liked about him is when his snaps went up, his production went up. It wasn't like his snaps went up and the production kind of lingered. No, it
wasn't Ross Dwelly?
No, it wasn't. And, he played over 80% of the snaps for Jacksonville. So that's somebody that's on the field a lot for your team. That's impressive. So you want to bring these guys in. Now, do I think he could get better in the coverage? I do. But when you're looking for cheap options, they're not going to be put together and doing all the things you want them to do. What you're hoping is that you can project them and develop them into being a really good football player. And I think he's one of those guys that if he's on your team, even if he's not starting, he's one of those guys on special teams that everyone loves because he's going to go down there and make big-time plays for you, and he's going to get after it. But I think he has a potential, if Jaquiski Tartt moves on, to start for the 49ers. And I know a lot of people are asking who, but go check out the film. He's not a bad football player. And I think he could help the Niners out if they needed to go that route.
And look, at the end of the day, right, there are sacrifices you have to make when building a team. You can't have it everywhere. Rams are a perfect example of this. Linebacking core was atrocious. It's hot garbage. It's not good. Not good. They still somehow found a way to win a Super Bowl, right? Maybe the sacrifice, if you're going to go get a big corner, maybe the sacrifice is safety. Maybe you don't have yourself an almost Pro Bowl type caliber player in Jaquaski Tartt and Jimmy Ward out there in space, where if they put together the turnovers and things of that nature and stay healthy for a full season, they're on the cusp and on the precipice of if they do a couple more things, they could be in that Pro Bowl conversation. Maybe you sacrifice that, shore up your cornerback position, and you roll with one of these names that we just talked about, one of these 3 guys, whether that's Justin Reid, whether that's Mr. Taylor, or whether it's Wingard that we just brought up.
Yeah.
Either one of these 3 guys could be a possibility. And they're probably all going to cost right around $1.5 million. That's not a lot of money to pay for a starting safety in this league, and it leaves a lot of money on the table for other positions and depth in other places.
Yeah, young guys that are ascending. I think that's the way to look at it. Young guys that are ascending that potentially fit your system that you could put in and see what they got. I mean, that's what they have training camp for. Go out there and compete, young guy. We're going to give you a shot to go get it. And maybe Hufanga is going to win the job, or maybe Tarvarius Moore would win the job against one of these guys. But I think that's what it's about. It's about breeding competition, and these guys will all be young cats going after it. I think the perfect situation for the Niners is to bring back Tartt. Push this thing down the line a little bit. Let Moore, Tartt, and Hufanga battle out for that spot, and the best player wins, and then you're feeling comfortable about the backups. Because let's say Tartt won. You got Moore to back up Jimmy Ward. You got Hufanga to back up Jaquiski Tartt, and I think you're feeling comfortable with that because, let's be honest, if it's a situation where you're passing, Hufanga's probably not going to be out there that much. But if it's a situation where he needs to be in the box, he could do that in the high level. So I think that's the perfect situation. But if not, there are some affordable options for the 49ers. And that's really what we're trying to point out with this episode.
Yeah, trying to point out the affordability, number one, and realistic. Be realistic about this. It's really easy to talk about Tyrann Mathieu.
Oh, I love it.
Really easy. Super easy to talk about Marcus May.
Yeah.
Quandre Diggs.
And
overpaying for Jesse Bates.
You could easily tie Diggs, right, to Sorensen. He's one of the ones that came out right away and was like, I love Sorensen. Sorensen's the guy. The Niners got themselves a gem right here. You could easily make that tie. But you can't because Diggs is going to make over $10 million a year.
And you're not going to pay that.
No, you're not. Not for a safe. Not when you're already paying Jimmy Ward that amount of money. And you're probably going to, extend Jimmy Ward just to free up some money for other things.
Correct. It just doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. And so now you have these names that we brought to you. Are we just dead wrong? What we're not considering is that some of these guys may, because of the saturated safety market, may just want to come in for that cheap 1-year deal. And maybe they want to build a super team like Von Miller did with the Los Angeles Rams. And the Niners are the location and the destination, and they just need to make sure they get that done. In that case, you wouldn't be wrong. But that has to happen first, and those guys have to be willing to leave that money on the table. We'll see. The Niners are going to exhaust all their options. They're going to look at everything. I mean, they're already talking about J.C. Jackson, and they're looking at him and wanting to bring him in. I know that doesn't... I think they're just doing their due diligence in that respect. I don't think they're actually, serious about paying a corner $20 million.
25 is what I heard. He wants $25 million.
I don't think they're serious about that. I think they're just doing their due diligence and making sure they talk to him and making sure, hey, I know you want 25, but to come here to San Francisco, would you not take $25 million?
I don't want to pay a quarterback $25 million. Why would I pay a cornerback $25 million?
I don't know, Ant. Crazy. It's almost like the same people who think Jimmy Garoppolo's contract's a waste are totally good with taking that money and spending it on one other position.
I mean, is J.C. Jackson going to for sure put us in the Super Bowl next year?
I don't know. I like J.C. Jackson a lot. I don't like him for $25 million.
I'm just saying, if it's not for sure, why are we making that move? We just did it without.
He's not Jalen Ramsey.
No, I'd rather save $11 million and get Stephon Gilmore.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you.
I also think the length of contract. You're going to have, Jackson for over 6 years.
Most likely.
A lot of guaranteed money. Stephon Gilmore probably a 2 or 3 year deal. A deal that you can get out from under sooner, which means when Nick Bosa's big money and Deebo Samuel's big money kick in, you could already have moved off of him.
Correct. So, I mean, listen, all of these things are possibilities. All of these things are realities. You have to go through all of them. But let us know what you think down below in the comment section right now. Are none of the guys we talked about guys that we're bringing back to the safety room? We are going after one of the big names and we're just dead wrong. Or are you going to go do some research now on some of these names that you've never heard of at the safety position?
Please do and let us know what you think.
I think you should. I think you should. Comment down below and, save it for the next live stream as well, in which you can bring up those questions as well. Maybe you've finally watched the film on them, and who knows? And maybe one of these names are actual names the Niners end up signing next week during free agency.
Yeah, and if they do, we'll be live talking about it. We're going to have breaking news all next week. We're going to try to be on this. As soon as the Niners sign someone, we're going to try to be, getting live if we can. Of course, we do work jobs, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but we're going to do our best. And, sometimes they break them right in the middle of the night, which is interesting. But this is going to be a fun week. I'm excited about it. We'll see if they sign any of these guys that we've talked about. But it's what this is about. I mean, this is the most exciting part of the offseason is this free agent frenzy. And then that kicks us right into draft because then after that, we know what holes need to be filled. So the team is finally going to start to take form, and I think that's exciting.
That is extremely exciting, and let us know about it all down below, Cutback Crew. And while you're down there commenting away, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell.
Yeah, do that. And if you are listening on a audio version, please give us a rating. And if you want to give us 5 stars, that would be wonderful. Considering you listened this far into the episode, maybe you will. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. You guys are the reason that we do this, and we really appreciate it. We get to talk 49ers football. We get to interact with you, and I think that's the best part.
It's the most exciting part, and now we get to get ready for exciting times with the Cutback Crew and with the faithful, what the Niners are doing, what the roster is going to be looking out like, and how they're going to be building it out. We'll catch you on the next episode, and until that time, stay safe.
Remember, the right way
is always the 49ers way.